The Democratic National Convention officially kicks off tomorrow right here in Chicago. To help break down the event for us is Professor of Political Science with North Central College, Stephen Caliendo. Good morning, my friend. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Elizabeth. How are you?
Thanks for being with us. I know it's a very busy week, so thanks for getting up bright and early on this Sunday morning for us. So it's finally here. We've been talking about this in Chicago for, 2 years? But this convention looks so much different, so differently than it did even just a month ago. What do you think the common thread, the common theme will be from the Harris campaign compared to what it would have been if it was Biden still running?
Yeah, I'm certainly glad I wasn't on the committee that had to, was planning for 2 years and then had to scramble in the last month to sort of shift things. But remember, this is Kamala Harris, who's Vice President of the United States, and she has a record with the administration together. And so a lot of the policy issues and the platforms won't change. The theme that they announced is really a forward-looking theme, and that's a difficult line to walk, Elizabeth. They're going to have to do this very carefully. They'd like to contrast with Make America Great Again, which, of course, is very famously the Trump motto. And they see that as backwards looking, going to try to make America how it was at an earlier time. What they're going to try to do this week is establish two things at once that are somewhat contradictory, which is the last 4 years have been positive and improvements have been made, and yet looking to the future is the way that Americans will enjoy prosperity.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting line they're going to walk.
She recently announced her economic plan, calling it an opportunity economy. Things like a federal ban on grocery price gouging, that's the first ever, expanded down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers, and $6,000 per child to families for the first year of the child's life. How much is she going to focus on, or how much is the convention in and of itself going to focus on policy?
There's always policy talk at the convention, but of course that, for most of us, that's boring. We really want to hear attacks and we want to hear pump-up speeches and those types of things. But a lot of voters really want to hear the substance. Look, this economics is in the top 3 issues for all Americans as they move to the voting booth in the next couple of months. And because while we don't technically have an incumbent president running for re-election, we do have an incumbent administration. And so I think what they're going to try to show is that while inflation has come down and the rate of inflation is lower, people are still feeling the high prices from when inflation was high earlier in the Biden administration. And so I think this focus on price gouging and other sort of corporate elements of the reason the prices are still high will be the focus this week.
Speaking of what voters want to hear, are people tuning in? Do people watch this? I mean, we know that $94 million was raised for this convention. What does that tell us?
Well, there were in the 1960s and 1970s, all the major networks would have gavel-to-gavel coverage on the evening programming. People would tune in. It was such an important thing to do. But part of that was because there was a lot of excitement around the actual nomination of the presidential candidate. That hasn't been the case for a very long time because of the way we've done campaign finance and front-loaded primary systems. We're seeing images here of the 1968 convention in Chicago, of course, and so all eyes were on what was happening in Chicago that year. By the time we got to 1996, it wasn't nearly as important. I think folks are watching because we have a new candidate, a candidate that's just emerged in the last month, so people will be tuned in there. And unlike what we saw in Milwaukee, we will see a lot of more famous people. That is, we're going to have former presidents. President Obama will speak. President Clinton will speak. Senator Hillary Clinton will speak as well, of course. So it's going to be a very different, more traditional convention than what we saw up in Milwaukee.
Among the speakers, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. What does this convention do for them and their political futures?
Well, I think for Mayor Johnson, I don't know how much about what his aspirations are in terms of political future, but it certainly is an opportunity to showcase the great city of Chicago and what we do day in and day out in terms of making a place that people want to come visit and keep tourism alive. For J.B. Pritzker, of course, there may be other motivations. He is certainly still seen as an up-and-comer in Democratic politics, national Democratic politics. As you know, Elizabeth, he was on the short list for Kamala Harris in terms of a vice presidential pick. And so this is an opportunity for him to introduce himself to the rest of the country and in case they're, moving forward when we think about 4 years from now, whether or not there might be opportunities for J.B. Pritzker.
We're probably going to hear kind of a rah-rah speech from Governor Pritzker, I have a feeling.
There's no question. Yeah, I think that the speakers will be selected to provide very different elements, different facets of the message that Democrats want to give. And I think the speech that we'll hear from J.B. Pritzker is very much going to be a cheerleader type of speech.
Your takeaways. So we've got 4 days of nonstop programming, especially mainly during prime time, I guess. Different speeches, different policies. What are you going to be looking for? What are you excited about this week?
I'm excited about taking a nap on Friday, Elizabeth. That's what I'm going to be.
Me too.
I'm with you. It's going to be a very long week. But in all seriousness, I think, seeing the way that people respond to the energy that we've seen around Kamala Harris is going to be interesting. I mean, it will sustain throughout that week for sure. What we saw in Milwaukee was really phenomenal in terms of the way they were able to pull off a convention with great energy, a unified message. But what's going to be different here, and I mentioned it, it's going to be more traditional. It was very odd in Milwaukee, as I mentioned when we visited after that, that President Trump was there all 4 days, and he sort of sat there in a box like it was the Kennedy Center honors and listened to people saying nice things about him for 16 or 17 hours over the course of that week. That will not be what happens here. I think Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to be off campaigning for most of the week, and they'll make their respective speeches Wednesday and Thursday nights, again, respectively, and it'll be very traditional in that respect. And so they're hoping that the other speakers will carry the day and that the delegates will be enthusiastic. Remember, a lot of what's not televised, Elizabeth, is what goes on at the McCormick Place during the day. Lots of caucus meetings and affinity group meetings. And so some of that, the real hard work of the Democratic Party will be happening off camera.
Last question for you, Bud. Do you think the voters watch these conventions and make up their mind based on watching these conventions?
No, I can't imagine that they would. And I don't think it would be a wise thing to do. And this is a one-sided event. It's a pep rally for one particular perspective or one, cluster of perspectives. I think to the extent that debates matter, people generally don't make decisions based on that. And that's a more realistic exchange of ideas. So I don't think they're doing that. But I do think that folks who are inclined to support progressive policies and progressive candidates will be tuning in to see whether or not they should be activated. They should be working for candidates, whether they should donate money to candidates, and ultimately, of course, whether or not they come to the voting booth or stay home because they're not comfortable completely with some of Kamala Harris's policies. That is, that they wouldn't be progressive enough for some of those voters. So I think it matters, but it doesn't matter in terms of making a decision on for whom to vote.
All right, Stephen Caliendo with North Central College, professor of political science. Keep the suit clean. I think we'll be seeing you many times over this week.
Will do.
Appreciate it. Thanks. At Fox 32, we will be live all day beginning tomorrow on your streaming device, wherever you are, no matter what time of day. We'll have continuous live coverage of the DNC features, up-to-the-minute news, information, interviews, and more from inside and outside the convention. Grab your cell phone, open the Fox 32 mobile app, and press Watch Live. It's that easy. From 4:30 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, we're doing it live right there on your cell phone. Well,